Welcome to Mediumship Unplugged. My guest today is the amazing, highly creative, and multi-talented Leslie Mcguirk, internationally known astrologer, author, and product designer. Growing up, Leslie was met with repeated negativity from adults that she had no talent as an artist. Not listening to that, thankfully, she became a famous designer in Japan, author and illustrator of over 20 children's books, and her first adult book is entitled The Power of Mercury. She has been studying astrology for decades, teaches at many spas and resorts, and is a popular keynote speaker for corporations on the topic of creative inspiration. And we are so lucky to have you here today, Leslie. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's always interesting for me to hear people read my history because even I'm astonished at what's happened to me. It's pretty cool. Like I would always say, oh my gosh, 10 years ago, I never could have imagined that I would be doing whatever it is. It's been very interesting ride.
It's amazing. I watched your TED Talk after you and I had a session. I had a private session with you, which was amazing. You have an uncanny gift for identifying an individual's life design patterns and their key themes. And you touched on things that you knew nothing about my early design as a child and what I went through. And I was just blown away. It was really amazing.
But I think that there was a movie I watched many years ago about Temple Grandin. Have you ever seen that movie?
I did. I love it. Yes.
Okay, so she's on the autism spectrum, and she had this amazing ability to understand cattle, and she could see patterns. And when I watched that movie, I just couldn't stop crying because I could relate to her. And even though I don't present as autistic, I think that my brain is definitely different. And I think that the number one thing that I do really well intuitively is I notice patterns. And I think that's what makes me a different type of astrologer than the average one out there, because I do think I have some sort of uncanny ability to spot things with people. So anyways, just if people haven't seen that movie, they should.
It's an amazing movie, and she's an amazing woman. I I know you had a tough beginning. So what drove you? I mean, was there an inner knowing, an inner knowledge that you had that, I'm not listening to this and I'm going to follow myself and my own feelings and my own intuition and creativity? Was there something within you that drove you?
That would probably explain 50% of it, but the other 50% was because of people that I met who believed in me, and they were famous people. One of them was J.P. Donlevy, the Irish fiction writer. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but I read his book, The Ginger Man, when I was in college at Sarah Lawrence, and I ended up having all these weird coincidences happening to me that related to the book. So I wrote him a fan letter, and he wrote back, and he ended up becoming a mentor friend. And he died about 6 years ago, I think. But he saw my talent and he believed in me. And also the astrologer that I went to when I was 19, she said, "Oh my God, you're incredibly talented." And I said, "What, me? I mean, I've never been told I'm good at anything." And I didn't want to disappoint these people because obviously I knew deep in my heart that they were right. But it's hard when everyone tells you that you're not very gifted and there's nothing special about you. It's really hard not to believe it.
It is. And I think a lot of people that do the kind of work that we do have had harsh beginnings. And I think that in a way is necessary for us to do the work that we do and to
I
have,
agree. Well, it gives us an unbelievable amount of empathy. I think that's one thing when I talk to my clients, there's a lot of suffering in people's lives and pain that they've gone through, and I can identify with their pain at some level. And I think that's very comforting for people. And also with astrology, it makes you realize it's not your fault. Like just yesterday, I did the chart for someone who had been raped when she was in college, and she's in her 60s now, but she still sort of blames herself. Well, it's kind of my fault because I was drinking or whatever. And I said, no, I don't care what you did. I said a woman could run through Central Park stark naked, and if she does that, it doesn't mean she deserves to be raped. So I said we got to get rid of that shame.
oh, I absolutely agree. It's so many women have been, I don't want to say victims, but we've been victimized. Uh, and it's, I know for a lot of girls, like myself, it started at a very young age. And it was just part of society and part of the thinking that we have that we're objects and we're not autonomous. And
Well, lately I've been
so,
watching old TV shows like Leave It to Beaver, Father Knows Best, That Girl, whatever, these old shows that I used to watch as a
right.
kid. And I am just shocked at how the women are treated. On That Girl, these men were coming after her, and they sort of, I mean, it was really inappropriate behavior. This would never be on TV now. But back then, it was sort of like okay to treat women like objects. It was fascinating to watch, and I thought, oh my gosh, the women stayed home and wore pearls every day, and were serving the husband.
No.
And
Uh,
Bewitched, even she was doing it too. Anyway,
yeah,
I
yeah,
just thought, wow, we grew up. I mean, I grew up with all of those shows.
yeah,
So,
yeah. We are watching the black and white Twilight Zone,
oh, how fun! That's
and
great.
the things that women say and how they're treated, I'm just like my mind is blown watching this.
And it wasn't that long ago.
No, it
So,
was not. It was not.
and
It
here's
was not.
something else I want to tell you that's just shocking. So I got pretty well known in the children's book world. My books did very well, but I never cracked to that level of the people who get to be on with a cartoon series or stuffed animals. I mean, I did it in Japan a little bit, but not anywhere else. So get this. This is going to blow you away. In the world of children's picture books, there has never once been a woman creator who's made it big with one of her stories. So everyone that we all have watched, whether it's Mickey Mouse, Snoopy, Babar, Curious George, you list all of them. They're all created by men. So a woman has never broken through. The only woman who was broken through would be Beatrix Potter, but that was, a long time ago. I'm talking about in the modern world. I mean, how fascinating. Women are the ones who mostly well, obviously, all give birth to children and raise them, but in the creative realm, it's still a man's world.
It, yeah,
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
yeah,
The fact.
that's
And
crazy.
I was like, gosh, I want to be the first woman who's going to break this code, and I wanted to talk about it. So I got close, and I mean, maybe it's never too late, but
Hmm. Hmm.
never know.
Wow. So when you went to this astrologer when you were 19,
Hmm.
and how did that put you on the path of being an astrologer yourself?
Well, I couldn't believe what she did. I was obsessed with trying to learn everything from her. And I would go to bookstores in New York City, and these metaphysical books would fascinate me. And I started reading about, Seth, the trance channel, and all these things which were not part of the vernacular where I grew up in Bronxville, New York. So I just think that I totally understood that there were secrets to this universe and secrets to our life. And I never wanted to be an astrologer. Trust me, that was the last thing I wanted to do. I was writing and illustrating children's books, and everything was about puppy dogs and little, bunny rabbits. And then I thought to myself, oh my God, I don't want to sit with a total stranger and talk about the deepest, darkest things. And I thought, there's no way I'm going to do this. And then it became abundantly clear that the universe wanted me to do this. And I remember exactly where I was in my living room at the time. And I just said, I really don't want to do this. But if this is really what you want me to do, you make it happen. I'm not going to have a website or business card. You prove to me that this is my life path, and I will do it, and I will help people, but you got to bring them to me. And it was weird. Within like 24 hours, I got a phone call. One of my friends wanted me to teach a class in Vero Beach where I was living at the time, and we had like 15 people sign up, and then it just kept growing and growing. And I thought, this is so weird. And then I went to Rancho La Puerta, where I had been teaching creativity workshops, and I said to the woman who was in charge of the programming, I said, how about if I do a class on astrology? And she said, no, 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 we don't do things like tarot cards. And I said, this isn't tarot cards. And I explained to her what it was that I was going to do. And that very first time I ever talked about astrology publicly was in Mexico. And ironically, in the audience was a well-known literary agent who came up to me after my talk and said, I don't even believe in astrology, but after hearing you talk, I don't want you to do children's books anymore. I want to help you become a world famous astrologer, and I'm going to help you get your first book published. And she dedicated 2 years of her life to help me. And then the book came out in 2016 with HarperCollins. And it's very, very difficult, as you know, to get a book published by a major publishing house. And I had no history as an astrologer.
Mhm.
I mean, I had my own personal history. I've been studying it since I was 19. So I'm mostly self-taught. I have found a few teachers over the years. One in particular helped bring it to life. And I think because I'm creative, I needed it to become something other than all this technical information. So when I teach, I'm not a technician at all. I teach people how to play with it. So I look at astrology as if we're all born with a musical score, nothing more, nothing less. You can predict certain things. Like if I see your rap music and you grow up with two parents who have classical music in their soul, you're going to have a tough time fitting in. So you can predict certain things like that, but I don't use astrology for fortune telling. I use it to identify patterns and help people be the highest version of themselves. My job is to get you to like your piece of music, accept it, and do it to the best that you possibly can. And some of us fight with what we are. I mean, I did. I didn't particularly love my chart. There are things in my chart I'd like to trade in and get something else. But I also realized that those difficulties are what give me a lot of the empathy that I have that can really help people.
That's what makes you amazing, because you have a connection, uh, whether it's spirit, the universe, whatever it is, you have a connection that I have never seen before. And every time I talk about you and tell people about you, I tell them I waited 30 years for this woman to show up in my life. And it just the synchronicity happened. I was told by a friend of mine and who had a session, who knew someone that you knew that knew someone, and and it just got passed on to me, and it was like, I have to see this woman. I've been waiting over 30 years, because I went to an astrologer, way back, oh gosh, I don't know, 40 years ago, something like that. And I just wasn't satisfied with it. And it wasn't heartfelt to begin with.
Mhm.
It had no feeling in it. And it was just all numbers and this and that. It was technical, and I just wasn't feeling it.
Well,
And
I would say most astrologers are technical, and many of my students and many of the people that I work with, they said, you're not like any other astrologer, and I'm not. I am not a technician at all. And I think about it also as with art. I'm also totally untrained in art. So my art that comes out of me onto the piece of paper, it's totally intuitive. It's just what I feel. And so my particular style is very unique because I haven't been corrupted by people telling me how to draw. It's just pure me. Okay, so when I look at an astrology chart, I'm looking at your life as a piece of art, and or a piece of music, and I'm just tuning it up for you, letting you see and feel what I'm actually reenacting your life for you. And what's powerful about that is that I don't know anything about these people, and I'm saying, well, this is what your parents did, and this is your brother. And, some people don't realize that with astrology, when I see a particular thing, there can be a big range of how that particular pattern that I see is going to manifest. And I just had to figure out where in this range it is. And eventually I'll get it, and I never give up. Sometimes it takes me 45 minutes before. And I always say the chart never lies, but my clients will lie. Not lie intentionally, but they literally are not aware. And a lot of what I find is that people who have trauma under the age of 5, or especially around age 5, that is that's what happened to me. I had surgery on my throat when I was 5. There was a cyst on my thyroid. And when I was on the operating table, the anesthesia wore off. And that's a very frightening thing to have happen. But when you're 5, you don't have the ability to tell your parents what happened. You don't have the words for it. Sadly, the doctors didn't tell my parents. But after that surgery, I was never the same. It's like I went to war, and I had PTSD beyond belief. I went into the surgery, a calm little girl came out, wired up and not right. And my parents had no idea what had happened. They just knew something happened, but they didn't have the tools to help me. But I think that's why age 5, anyone who has children, if you can avoid having your child go under any kind of anesthesia, that's the best. But of course, sometimes you have no choice, but you have to really work with those kids afterwards and help them get grounded and feel safe again. There's a lot of interesting scientific research around trauma around age 5 or younger, but especially age 5.
Mm-hmm. I'm thinking of, this reminds me of my oldest grandson when he had his tonsils out, and he came out of anesthesia screaming. He was so frightened. It was like having a night terror. And it took probably 10, 15 minutes to get him calmed down.
How is
And
he now? Is he still a little wired up? Is he more hyper than the others? Or
both of them are a little wired. He's always been wired. When I babysat him for 4 years, his first 4 years, and he would wake up from naps like that. He would have night terrors. He would wake up screaming. He never took naps more than 20 minutes twice a day. It was never longer than that. He would go into these just really frightening tantrums that could last 2 and 3 hours, and it could be 2 or 3 times a day. And then all of a sudden, no, and then all of a sudden, like a flip of a switch, he was fine. He was done with it. He was fine, and like it never happened, and it was wild. But the doctors were saying when he came out of anesthesia that was a common occurrence for children when they come out of anesthesia.
This is what I'm trying to tell you. It's not, because you can't talk to the child at age 5. They don't have, there's something about age 5 that's it's just really difficult for a child who goes under anesthesia. Even worse, if you wake up on the operating table like I did, that's a whole nother layer of muck onto the child.
I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine.
Well, the unfortunate thing for me is that my parents would try to reason with me, and they would say, "What's your problem? You're fine. You're back home. The surgery's over. You've got your stuffed animals."
Yeah.
And the more they tried to reason with me, the more I wanted to push them away because I knew something was really wrong with me.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't have the words to describe it. And the more they tried to reason with me, the more I pushed back. And it was painful. A child at
Yeah.
age 5 should
Yeah.
not be pushing back their parents who want to love the kid.
Right. Right. Absolutely. And most children with any kind of trauma or any kind of event, they won't talk about it. I remember myself, I never told my parents a lot of different things. And just, I'm dating myself here. I remember when I had my tonsils out and they used ether.
Oh,
And so I remember the like the strainer that went over my mouth and then the piece of gauze that went over the strainer and them taking drops and putting it on the gauze.
and how old were
And,
you when
and
that happened?
I was pretty young. I was pretty young.
Like under 5
Uh
or around there?
Around that time.
Yeah,
It was
it's
yeah.
very traumatic. Like I said, that people need to realize this because I don't think it's talked about enough. And in the animal kingdom, if a zebra is getting attacked by a lion, that's a very traumatic event. And if for
Mhm.
whatever reason the zebra escapes, the zebra needs to do this entire physical, like shaking it out thing to get the trauma out of the body. And if they don't do this physical thing to get it out, the zebra will actually die.
Mm.
So that's what humans need to realize, that when children have this type of surgery, sometimes you have to replay the event in a playful way. Like, I'll give you an example. My niece had open heart surgery on her 3rd day of life. So she doesn't remember any of that. But guess what? It's in her body and she's different than her siblings. She's got 5 siblings. The reason she's different is because she had to go under anesthesia and have this open heart surgery on day 3. So when she was about 4 years old, I was playing with her and she wanted to play this game that she invented about baby birds and the mother. And one of the baby birds got injured and we played it over maybe 20 times in a row. We would so I knew what we were doing. We were reenacting her trauma, even though she doesn't have any memory of it in terms of using words to describe it. But that's what the people who have studied this kind of trauma say, that you have to go over it over and over and over again until it kind of lessens.
Yeah, that's play and it, and even movement for children is a good way of expressing things that have happened to them. And a lot of my clients don't understand when I dive in, I get in pretty deeply into people's relationships with one another and their traumas and things like that. And and people do deny it's a defense mechanism. They also lie. And when I, insist this is what spirit is telling me, I trust them.
Yes, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Same thing.
And they don't want to face it. What people don't realize is that when we experience trauma, even if we don't remember it as a child, that energy is in us. It stays in us. It stays in our cells. It stays in our muscles. It
Yes.
stays in our energetic body. It's there. And you can't say, "Oh, I'm over it," unless you have dealt with it on an energetic level. It's still there.
Right. And that's why therapy is from here up. It's talking about it, but I use the analogy of, like, let's say something's the matter with your car. Going to therapy is like talking about where the car was made and what kind of factory it was in, and how this problem occurred. And it's again, it's a technical thing. It's analytical, which is not bad. It's interesting, and you need to know these things. But there's something about working with trauma from the neck down that needs to happen, and that's not part of modern medicine, very much. I'm a big fan of EMDR therapy, which gets to trauma at the physical level. And anyone who does somatic healing, that's really good too. But again, like even just shaking, like the way the zebra does it, just getting it out. Like, so if something bad happens to someone today and they see, let's say, a squirrel get run over by a car and they're traumatized by that, which I would be, by the way, because I'm such an empath, I'd have to I'd shake it out or go walk barefoot. I have to get it out of my body. Otherwise, it kind of just viscerally hits me.
That also reminds me when I was working as a courier with FedEx, and
Hmm.
this was I was up north. I was in Illinois at the time, and I was going down a residential street, and someone in front of me had hit a squirrel, and poor thing was, flipping back and forth on the ground, and I stopped to cry. And as I was looking at this, there were three different types of birds. I don't remember what they were now, but at the time, and they were jumping around the squirrel and squawking, trying to um, get it up or
Eat
whatever.
it.
But
Maybe they were vultures.
no, no,
They
they were
weren't
just,
vultures.
like a red bird, and
Oh,
they were
okay.
just regular
Wow.
birds, and they were
Okay.
they were just hopping around it and squawking, and what we also don't realize is that when we are traumatized and we have that energy within us, that it seeps out, and people around
Yeah.
us are affected by it also.
Yeah,
Maybe
exactly.
not on a conscious level, on a subconscious or energetic level. And it's so important. I just, that's one of the things that I think we agree upon is for people to dive in, to get in there and get to the painful stuff.
Right.
And
I was once with a friend of mine, and her little daughter was 3, and the mother, by mistake, ran over a chipmunk. And this little girl was so upset. She said, Where's the ambulance? Don't they have an ambulance for chipmunks?" And I was like, I just love that. I want to do a book about that now, like the chipmunk
oh,
ambulance.
oh, I think that would be great. That would be awesome.
Yeah, this would be
That would
funny.
be really good. That would be really good. So, some of the things in the readings that you do and the charts that you do, in someone's basic natal chart, you have the moon, the sun, and the rising sign.
Mm-hmm.
So how, oh, and I also, don't let me get sidetracked too much. I want to ask you about Pluto and what has happened with Pluto recently.
Okay.
Um, but how are those three things important in a natal chart? Just in case someone is watching that knows nothing about astrology.
Okay.
But
So most people in that are in their 20s and 30s, I've been told in Brooklyn, if you go to any bar in Brooklyn, if you don't know how to talk about your sun sign, your moon sign, and your rising sign, you're not going to be able to have a conversation. So those three things are, they're the most basic identifiers for you. The sun sign is probably the least important, but we all know our sun sign, but literally that is the least important thing, because the sun sign is telling you what kind of car you are. So are you a Toyota? Are you a Ford? Are you a Jeep? What are you? And it's not enough information because I don't know what color you are. I don't know if you're an SUV or a sedan. So it's just an identifier of a group of a brand that you have. So that's what the sun sign is. It's your branding. Okay. The moon sign is probably the most important thing to know, far more important than knowing your sun sign, because your moon sign tells me how you're going to react when you get upset. Because the moon is that rock in space that regulates all the water on planet Earth. And we're like 80% water, and emotions are water because when you cry, you're making water that comes out of your eyes. So the moon is the planet that has a zodiac sign attached to it. and in your natal chart. And that moon sign will tell me how you're going to react if you get stuck in an elevator, when there's trauma, when you're stressed out, or if you see a squirrel getting run over, the moon sign will tell me how you're going to react. So someone who has their moon in an air sign, which is Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius, that air, what they do is they get off into the sky like a bird and they stay in the air and they can observe the squirrel on the ground and not get emotional. They're great paramedics, great doctors. You need people with their moon in air for many, many professions. My moon is in Earth. So that's Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. And what the Earth people do is they hold, so the Earth holds a lake. The water goes into the lake. So I hold on to emotions. So that thing with the squirrel, I'd be feeling it. I'd hold on to it for longer than I probably should. Then you have the moon in fire, which is Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. These people want you to evaporate your emotions. They're like, get over it. The squirrel's dead. You're done. Move on. Then the last group are the water people, Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. And they are very, very emotional because water is emotions. So they're going to be more like the earth people. They're going to hold on to it. So that's very important for compatibility. So if you are somebody like me with moon in Taurus, which is earth, and you put me in a relationship with someone whose moon is in Sagittarius, which is fire, every time I have an emotion, I'm like a tree growing in the forest. Every time I have an emotion, that fire person comes in and says, stop being upset. They want to fix it. They want to like get rid of that tree. So the moon sign is super important. You need to look them up and figure out compatibility, more so with the moon than the sun. And then also your Mercury sign is very important. That tells you how you're going to communicate. Same principles. Fire and water is more difficult than fire and air. And then the rising sign tells you what you look like. So think of us all as being like houses. Some people look like Spanish architecture. Some people look mid-century modern. Some look like skyscrapers. We all have a look to us. And that's what the rising sign is. It tells us how we appear when we're meeting someone for the first time. So for me, I have Leo rising. So when you put me on a TV show or radio or on a stage, the Leo comes out, this lion comes out. But I'm not a Leo, I'm a Cancer. Cancers are shy and retiring, but nobody would guess that I'm a Cancer because what you're feeling like right now during this conversation, what you're going to feel and see is the Leo coming out. And if you don't have the right birth time, the ascendant will be incorrect. You need to know the birth time to know the ascendant.
Okay. Okay. Wow.
Isn't it amazing?
Yeah.
I mean, it's when I teach groups, and it's so cool because I make everything come to life. I'm not into memorizing all the technical stuff of astrology because you'll drive yourself crazy. I had one student who she's been studying astrology for 20 years and she could never pull it all together. And then she started studying with me and she's like, oh my God, I finally get it. I'm like, yes, it doesn't have to be this complicated. So anyway, when I'm teaching groups, I move them around the room according to their rising sign or their ascendant, which just means what they look like. So you put all the Leo rising sign people, and I'd be in that group together, and you can see they may have different body types or whatever, but there's something about the way they present to the world that has this dun 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 dun, here I am. And then other people, if they have their rising sign as Pisces, it's like moving slowly in the background and like, don't put me in the limelight. So it's very interesting. And that's how it comes alive when you actually see how it works. And then you, like what I just taught you just there, that's an easy way to use astrology right now for people, just to see about compatibility. Or let's say you want to hire someone, or let's say you want to find a babysitter for your kids. Look at your kids' moon signs and find a babysitter who has a compatible moon sign because you want that kid to feel safe with the babysitter.
Right. Wow, that's so interesting. So a lot of your classes I noticed on your website you have a class coming up for beginners. And
Yeah, just
right.
started. We're already halfway through it, but I'll do it
Oh,
again.
okay.
But
Okay.
I promise people after 8 hours of studying with me, you will have enough knowledge to look up anyone's birth chart and get the basic gist of what they are. And what is that worth? I mean, in terms of hiring people or marriage or why you have difficulties with one of your children. Just there's so much information and you can use it for the rest of your life. But I'll be doing it again in the fall. I usually do it twice a year, and then I have a class coming up on Uranus. This is pretty funny. So I was supposed to teach it on Wednesday, and Uranus is the planet of unexpected events. So I titled the class "Expect the Unexpected." Well, on Wednesday, Zoom went down. Did you know this?
No.
Oh, anyone who was trying to do business on Zoom on Wednesday afternoon, you couldn't get in. So it was like, how perfect. Right when I'm starting the class on Uranus, we unexpectedly had this major problem and we have to start it over again on Wednesday. So if anyone's interested, I do these classes on individual planets, which are going to be sold on my website. We're editing them right now and getting them up. So you can take a 45-minute class at your leisure whenever you want to on each one of the planets.
And I know you go to Mexico.
Yes, to
You
teach at Rancho La Puerta.
and what are those like? What does that look like for people who might be interested in going to that?
So Rancho La Puerta is the number one international destination spa in the world, according to Condé Nast Traveler magazine. It was founded in the 1940s by Edmund Zeke and his wife Deborah. And Deborah's still alive. She's like 104 right now, and she looks fantastic. She does a
Wow.
weekly program every Tuesday night. So I've been teaching there since 2000, and I would say it's one of the most sacred spots on the planet. If you want to go and meet incredibly interesting people who are all about health and opening up your mind, there are lectures every night. There are tons of fitness classes. They grow a lot of their own food there. Everything's organic. All the rooms are individually decorated like you have your little house. It's not like a hotel at all. It's like visiting, it's not a typical spa either. It's like literally visiting a family compound with all this original art that's been collected all over, the past, 80 years. And
Wow.
Deborah has a great sense of style. So every room has original art and every room's totally different, or every little casita. So
Wow.
it's an amazing place. I feel very lucky to be there and continue to teach there. I would say that it's not only the experience of being at the ranch physically that's phenomenal, but also the people you meet there. And it's a great place to go if you're single too, because it's very easy. Every night you just sit at a round table and they put you with other people. So you never have to feel like you're, left out or alone.
When are you going when's the next time you're going?
The week of June 21st to the 28th, I'm actually bringing my advanced astrology students with me. So if anyone's interested in going, they can still contact me and they can take my 101 class, which I give them for free if they sign up for the class in Mexico. It's a week-long class where you get to study with me for 90 minutes every day.
Do you go twice a year or more?
For most of my life, I've been going between 2 and 4 times a year.
Okay.
Lately, since COVID, I haven't been going as often, but I usually I'll be going twice a year now, starting in 2026.
Okay. Awesome. That's great.
Yeah, very
That's
lucky.
amazing. Yeah. Wow.
That was another thing. This is an interesting story. When I first went to the ranch, helping my friend who had Parkinson's because she needed an assistant and I couldn't afford to go to the ranch. And this was back in I was in my 30s, so it was a long time ago. So I went there and I literally said to myself, oh my God, I have to come back here. I have to figure out how to get back here. And I knew I couldn't at the time. I didn't have the income to support doing this, but I figured I'm going to teach a class. I'm going to invent a class so that I can come back. So I presented it to the people in charge, and they said, no, this is not going to be a class we want to do. Well, I didn't give up, because I knew in every bone in my body, I knew I was supposed to be at this spot. So it took me 4 years. They finally said, all right, we'll let you do one class, but we're not expecting too much. And when you teach, we're going to give you the 5 o'clock time slot, which is the worst time when nobody goes to the classes. We're going to set up the room with like 5 chairs. So they were already expecting me to fail, but I think they got tired of me pestering them to teach. So the night before I started the workshop, I did an evening program about my life. And the next day when I taught my class, I had 50 people show up for the 5 o'clock.
Wow. That's amazing.
And remember, I had never taught before. So, I mean, the whole thing, it's actually quite a miracle that they let me in, because I had never taught a class before. But I've been breaking attendance records there for many years. And it's
Oh,
because what I do is so playful and so fun, but deep at the same time. Like, I'm very, very obsessed with making sure your life is changed after you hang out with me.
well, I think I'm going to have to go
You
at some
should.
point. I've resisted it because I don't know anything about astrology, and it's not my forte. And but it would be different. It would be very different for me, and it would be very different for other people. And I think that would be an amazing time spent with you, and being able to feel safe and to open up and to be playful and be creative. And I think that's what people are really, really looking for.
Especially right now, because people are feeling lost and confused.
Mm.
And really, there are very few things on earth that can help explain why you are the way you are, why other people are the way they are, and why
Mhm.
also the world is. And astrology has a definition and an example for all of that.
Why do you think that things are so, it's like two different realities are happening here? And it's literally kind of crazy. It's like we're, on one hand, it's like we're living in an upside down world, and everything is just like opposite. And then there's also a world of, if you disengage and you just live your life and create your reality um, as you want it to be, and not listen to, everything coming in at you, and just like get rid of it, not get on social media, not listen to the news. A lot of times I find myself being able to calm down and to enjoy myself and enjoy life. And what is happening, do you think, astrologically, with things being so crazy?
So basically, with COVID, we got an early taste of what it feels like to have your whole world turned upside down. So we've been living in a horizontal framework, and then all of a sudden, we're going into this vertical framework where we're being required as humans to connect more to the space above and the earth below. And this no longer is how we're going to be living. So with COVID, everything, whoop, life as we knew it was totally over. I mean, who would have thought we'd be, in lockdown, quarantined in our houses? So that was the warm up. And what we're going through right now is the full entrance into this. And this does not feel comfortable, because everything feels different than it did 2, 3 years ago. And it's difficult for many people. And if you're super sensitive, you're going to have a tough time, because the energies out there are so whacked out. Also,
Hmm.
there's a lot of panic. There's a ton of fear. Everything is shifting. So all of there's so many planets that are shifting, like Aquarius. You asked, I mean, not Aquarius, Pluto. ended its 20-year cycle in Capricorn and went into Aquarius just at the tail end of 2024. When these planets move into a new zodiac sign, it's as if a page of a book gets turned. But that's just one. There are like all these other planets, Neptune and Saturn and Uranus and Jupiter. They're all shifting. And this is very unusual because you don't normally get all of them shifting at the same time. So this is not a comfortable time. It's very unsettling. And the only thing I can say, there are two things that I believe we need to do right now more than ever is spend more time in nature, getting grounded, and also spend more time studying things like astrology or metaphysics to try to understand why and how we do have weather patterns. This is a weather pattern. This is a cosmic weather pattern we're going through. It's totally happening on time. It's like having a tsunami and a hurricane and an earthquake all at once hit us at an energetic level. And I don't know what it will feel like when it's finally settled down, but these are not easy times. That's for darn sure.
Wow. I like the way that you described it as us going vertical.
We have to go vertical. So I find it interesting. Remember all the drones that were in the sky, and how come we don't talk about that anymore? I have seen personally myself. I have seen 3 UFOs in my life, and I'm fascinated by the sky. Obviously, that's what I do for a living. I study the sky, the planets, the stars. I think there's so much up there that we don't know about. And we are connected to those rocks in space because just look at the moon. The moon is making all the tides go up and down. We're 80% water. That's why during a full moon, we're going to see more deaths, traffic accidents, births. Ask anybody in a police station or a school or a hospital. During a full moon, it's more activated. Now, does the full moon make you a lunatic? The word lunatic comes from the word luna, which is the moon. So no, it's just an influence. But if the moon is doing that, extrapolate it out to all the other rocks in space, and we are part of this electromagnetic system, which is one reason why we are exactly like a piece of music that we're born with. We're born with an owner's manual. We're born with an electromagnetic pattern. And a good astrologer is going to play your music for you. And they're going to say, look, you don't have any drums here. You need to get the drums activated. You don't have any, the flutes are out of key. We have to figure out a way to recalibrate ourselves. And then we recalibrate ourselves individually, but then we have to, as astrologers, we have to then look at the cosmic weather patterns that are hitting us right now. So for me, at the moment, my moon and my Mars are both in Taurus, which means that I like to be like a bull chewing grass in the field. Just leave me alone, okay? I just want to do what I want to do. And right now, Uranus, the planet of unexpected events, is sitting right on top of both of them. And I've known this was going to be coming for years. I've been worrying about it for years because I know that having the feeling of living inside of a pinball machine is not exactly my cup of tea. So I'm working very hard I'm doing yoga almost every day. I am spending a lot of time in my garden and with my dogs. Like the more I can do to counteract the energy that's going on, I have to work, we have to dance with what's going on. So if, just like in life, if you see it's raining and thundering and lightning, don't go play golf with a metal umbrella. You know, there are things you can do to counterbalance what's happening. And not everyone's getting hit as directly as I am right now. And I'm fine. Nothing bad is happening. I'm not going to get into an accident. I'm very aware of what's happening to me energetically. And I just try to counter it with the things that make me feel safe.
I totally agree. The best thing that I can do myself is to get out into the garden and do yard work and landscaping and gardening.
Oh, I love it. It
Yeah.
instantly gets rid of all the muck.
Mm.
Like seriously, energetically, it's like taking a bath. And when I'm on the computer too much, which I really don't like being on the computer, but the plants and the energy of the dirt, when I'm done in the garden, I feel better. I just don't have that stuff on me.
I I garden barefoot.
Oh, that's great. That's perfect.
I love feeling the grass and the dirt under my feet.
Do you
And
have fire ants up there? Because we have fire ants down
oh
here.
God, we
They're the
have
worst. I don't know if people
oh.
realize if you don't live in Florida, the biggest problem with living in Florida is Dan and I both live in Florida. Fire ants are hideous little creatures.
I can't get rid of them. They just move. I put down, the granules and they just move. They, within a few hours, overnight, they go to a new location. The stuff doesn't work on them. And I talk to them and I'd say, you need to go next door. She has a bigger yard than I do. You'll be happier over there. Please go over there. That doesn't work. Nothing works. I can't get rid of them. They just move around.
Yeah, I need to do some more research on those little critters. They are fascinating, and when they bite you, it can be weeks before that, the sting and
Oh,
everything, the
oh yeah,
blisters. Yeah.
yeah. Have you ever been bitten by a carpenter ant?
No, oh,
Oh,
that's even worse.
they'll draw blood.
Oh, the creepy crawlies.
Yeah, their little, chompers are, and they hold on. They hold on tight.
Have you ever seen those? There's a bug that one of my neighbors got stung. This bug, it was up in a tree and it squirts stuff into your eyeball. Amazing. I mean, nature's just amazing. I mean, everything in nature is, if you just took a circle around a plot in your garden and spent a couple hours looking at everything that's going
Uh-huh.
on just in that circle, you could be entertained for hours looking at just in one circle what's happening.
I know, and knowing my yard and being connected to my yard energetically and emotionally, and I feel my yard when I plant new plants, and I ask the yard where would you like me to put you? Where would you best like to be? And um, the if I take a look at any portion of my yard and I see anything that's been moved or the dirt has been disrupted, I can always tell what's gone on, whether there's been a armadillo in the yard, whether there's been raccoons in the yard. I can tell by, I don't usually see tracks, but I can tell how the dirt has been moved or the grass has been moved or a plant has been moved.
Wow, that's great.
And the raccoons, boy, they're pretty destructive. They'll we have a pump house because we're on well and we're not on city water. And the pump house doesn't go all the way to the ground. There's like this much down at the bottom that any
Mhm.
animal can crawl underneath. Well, the raccoons and the squirrels, they don't go underneath where it's easy. They chew the wood. They've chewed the door almost half off to get in
Whoa.
instead of going underneath where there's space.
Oh gosh.
But
That's
it's
nuts.
yeah, yeah, I have feeders out and the hummingbirds come and it, I feed everybody, the squirrels, the crows, all the birds, everyone gets fed. And so I agree with you. That is the probably the best thing people can do is get out into nature, take a walk, go to the park, work out in your yard, do something to kind of offset all of these energies. And
Do you know about forest bathing?
yes, I've heard of that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, there's actually it's a big thing in Japan.
Uh-huh.
I spent a lot of time in Tokyo. There's not a lot of green open space there, so they realize the importance of it. Also, there's a very, very important book everyone should read called Last Child in the Woods by Richard Louv, Louv, I think that's how you spell it. Fabulous book about why nature is so important and what it does to children if they're not in nature. And it is a frightening book because these kids who are just living on their phones, it affects you in ways you can't even imagine. And that's what I said about this whole vertical axis. We have to realize we must be connected to this earth. We have to do it with intention. Same thing with above. We need to be realizing we have a connection with these celestial things that are out there. And that's one reason why we're in this shakeup, because we cannot go forward being horizontal. It's just not going to work. So it's time. And that's what the lesson is for all this. You gotta do it. Or if you don't do it, then those energies can really make you feel very upset.
Would you repeat the name of the book again?
Last Child in the Woods.
Okay.
Richard Louv, L-O-U-V, something like that. It's 4 letters, his last name.
Okay.
The green cover. It's a amazing book, and I've met him. He's a fantastic speaker, and I just love everything he's talking about. And right now, more than ever, that book is very, very important.
I agree. I'll get it today. Absolutely.
Oh, good. Let me know what you think.
There's also a book. I don't know if I've ever told you about it or whether you've heard about it or read it. It's called Finding the Mother Tree by Suzanne Simard.
Never heard of it. Finding the Mother Tree. Okay, what's that about?
She is the scientist that discovered the fungus and the way that trees communicate and how trees.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. She has done amazing work. The book is amazing. It's about her life. She came from a logging family, and they were conscientious loggers, and they didn't go in and like strip an area clean. They were very cognizant about what trees they were going to take down, and there's always a mother tree that feeds, that sends out her roots and feeds the adolescent trees. And they don't all have to be the same species. They can be different kinds of trees, and they all connect and they all communicate. She's the one that discovered all of this.
Wow, it was a woman. It's funny because I know there's another book out there by a man, but she's the one who.
She started it all.
Huh.
Yeah.
Great.
All right. So any last thing you would like to wrap this up with? Any words of wisdom? Anything else that you would like to talk about?
Well, someone the other day asked me a question. They said, what motto do you live your life by? And right off the bat, I said, the one I think about all the time is this: the way you do anything is the way you do everything. And if you live your life thinking like that, you will live at a higher vibration. So that's just one thing to think about. The other thing, just to let people know, if they go to my website, they should email me if they've enjoyed, what I've had to say, and we'll sign you up for the newsletter. And that way you can also join my astrology club. It's on the 15th of every month, and it's free. And it's a way just to I talk about the current events, what's happening, and join our astrology groups that we've got on Facebook and Instagram. And of course, my Astrology Wisdom Academy school, it now has lectures that you can purchase online that are not that expensive, and just start listening. And, astrology doesn't have to be overwhelming. You're starting to believe it's possible.
Yes, for me.
No, if you try, if you It needs to be done in a very specific way so that you can digest it. Otherwise, it's way too much.
I think you would be
That's why
yeah.
I get people after 20 years of studying. I was at a certain level. I can get people to that level after 8 hours.
That's amazing.
Yeah, as
yeah.
I swear by that. I figured it out. I cracked the code on how to teach astrology, so that's a big deal.
All right, you've changed my mind.
Good. I'm going to send you info on Rancho La Puerta next.
Okay.
Well, it's lovely to talk to you. You're always amazing.
Thank you so much.
Great.
Thank you
I wish
so
I could give you a
much.
hug.
Yeah, me too, you.
Keep up the good work. You're doing amazing things. I've sent some of my clients to you, and they've all just raved about you and just honored to know you. So thank you for having me.
I'm honored to know you too. I'm so glad that the universe brought us together. Thank you so much.